An Alberta emergency alert over the weekend sunk Alberta into a rolling blackout and cold snap, one that could have harmed the lives or even caused death upon many Albertans. Luckily, other like-minded premiers came to the rescue, and in one day, we showed Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau how their green plan really adds up to nothing. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe, or we should say The Fridge if you're in Alberta, because man, was it cold over the weekend, as Alberta experiencing multiple emergency alerts over the weekend, as temperatures hit as high as minus 45 to minus 50 with the wind chill in some places. Now, Alberta should be able to, of course, because we're one of the highest oil and gas regions in the world. We have one of the largest supplies of oil and gas in the world. So why is it that Alberta would be experiencing such a power struggle, such a valiant effort to try and heat homes and keep people warm? Well, we don't have heat pumps in this province. Of course, that's Eastern Canada and where Justin Trudeau sucks up for his votes. But in just one day, Alberta has shown how the 2030 agenda is meaningless and has no value. Citizens right now should be complaining, screaming to the rooftops about carbon taxes that are stopping them from being able to afford food, carbon taxes that are stopping them from turning on the lights at home, to now saying, what is the purpose of these carbon taxes and how can you prove climate change is a thing? If you remember videos before the Christmas season, of course, we laughed at Justin Trudeau's claim that in order to get a white Christmas, all we simply had to do was pay more carbon tax. Well, it seems like Alberta might have actually paid a little too much when you look at the temperatures. But this is going to be a little bit of a stretch video today because there's a lot that I want to go over that happened over the weekend. A lot of it I've bookmarked over on Twitter, and it kind of paints the picture as to why people should be outraged at this point and questioning the motives of the federal government and the actual purpose of carbon tax. Because we know at this point, with these extremely cold situations, that the carbon tax is basically, well, look, we've all known it's worthless from day one, that it's nothing more than to allow them to spend. But Cian Bexte coming out Saturday night saying, rolling blackouts for Alberta tonight. The province is now feeling the full effect of Rachel Notley prematurely shutting down our coal plants. Wind and solar are at zero, while natural gas is barely keeping the lights on, literally. And of course, he's pasted the emergency alert that came through over the emergency broadcast network. And of course, Saskatchewan came to the rescue for us as Scott Moe's coal plants single-handedly saved the lives of thousands of vulnerable Albertans tonight. If and when Trudeau's climate police try to arrest him, Alberta has a moral obligation to send our sheriffs to protect him. I couldn't agree more. What they've shown is that, look, I've said it a million times over. If you want to invest in nuclear, if you want to find other ways to produce energy for the planet, until, you know, we advance our society enough to learn about things like fusion, which are far out of reach right now, we're going to have to come to the realization at some point that we're going to need to use liquid natural gas, that we're going to need to use gasoline to power our vehicles. Electric just isn't going to cut it. Before, in one of my previous lives, when I worked in a car dealership, back in the days of the Chevrolet Volt coming out to the market, I remember my manager at the time stating that, you know, it was a good stepping stone into the idea of an electric vehicle because it was an electric fuel hybrid. And he said, this definitely is not the answer. Tesla wasn't the answer, but it's a start. Now, if you own a Tesla, or if you've been thinking about purchasing a Tesla, because Justin Trudeau and his Liberals once again said they're going to make fuel vehicles or gasoline-driven vehicles illegal and ban them outright by 2030, well, think again, because what we've seen over the weekend, of course, now before we get into that, Scott Moe even saying SaskPower is providing 153 megawatt hours of electricity to Alberta this evening to assist them through this shortage. The power will be coming from natural gas and coal-fired plants, the ones the Trudeau government is telling us to shut down, which we won't. And of course, this just shows the testicular fortitude of Scott Moe, coming to the aid of Alberta. Now, we're going to get into the electric cars, but I also wanted to go over all of these tweets. Again, I'm sorry we're kind of switching subjects randomly here, folks. Minister of Affordability and Utilities, Nathan Neurdorf, issued the following statement in response to the electrical grid alert from the Alberta Electrical Systems Operator. We are calling on all Albertans to reduce their electric demand immediately to essentials only. Extreme cold resulting in high power demand has put the province's electricity grid at high risk of rotating outages. On top of the high demand of our own energy generation, Alberta's grid receives electricity from neighboring provinces. Extreme weather in Saskatchewan and British Columbia is impacting electricity sharing, which is also a contributing factor to tonight's grid alert. The Alberta Electrical System Operator has activated its emergency grid management plan to work with local distribution utilities to avoid potential rolling brownouts. Now, when we get back down to Danielle Smith, and what we had to do, I want to remind you, as we see Oren Bliss here tweeting out that this is where we can shift our blame. This was the start of all the issues with virtue signaling environmentalists back in 2016. Of course, you can see this article published on November 24th of 2016, where Oren says the damage caused by Rachel Notley and her troop of terrorists has struck again. Remember this? I sure missed the days, of having a trustworthy and dependable grid. Maybe it's time to fire up coal-powered generators again. And of course, this article stating that Alberta was to pay 3 power companies $1.36 billion to shut their coal-fired plants down early. The NDP government has mandated all coal-fired power plants either cease operations or eliminate all their emissions by 2030 as part of sweeping climate change legislation. Now, that hasn't worked out very well, and if you don't know who Rachel Notley was, well, the Sheriff of Nottingham was the overtaxing Premier of Alberta back in 2016, and of course, during lockdowns, this was one of her most famous tweets when she was fighting Fat Stalin, Jason Kenney. Notley had no problem with coming to the unpoked homes to educate them, and it says here in Rachel Notley's tweet, we need to figure out who isn't poked against COVID-19, why they're not, educate them, and then take the vaccines directly to them. This just makes sense. So Rachel Notley essentially wanting to go door to door, vaccinating anybody who didn't want to listen to their science. Now, as we go through, Tamara Leach, of course, tweeting out, thank you, Premier Moe, for stepping up when Albertans and Canadians need you the most. This is true North Canadian leadership. I couldn't agree more. It was great to see Saskatchewan come to us, come to our aid. Alberta emergency alert. Option 1, add more solar panels. Option 2, add more EVs to the grid. Option 3, admit climate hoax. Scratch the whole green energy shooting match and add more fossil fuels to the grid. Sheldon has it right on the head here. Now, this is why, again, these electric vehicles aren't going to work for people. Keep an eye on the temperature rating here as this vehicle is driving by throughout these videos. Here's an electric vehicle burnt out on the side of the road. Another one at minus 18 Celsius. Another one on the highway at minus 18 Celsius. Another one, minus 18 Celsius. Now, this isn't minus 45 or minus 50 with a wind chill. Minus 18 is an average cold temperature in Alberta. I don't know about the rest of Canada. I know other places get far more cold as the winter months go on, or far less cold if you're in places like British Columbia. And I've said before that when you look at electric vehicles, if you live somewhere like California, where electric vehicles are common, naturally so, you only see mostly rain and you see sunny weather, sunny skies. So it makes sense for electric vehicles. However, amidst their problems of batteries exploding and the cost of replacing said batteries, they don't work in Canada. As we've said on other videos coming out this week, that electric vehicles, when you plug them in to charge them, especially in the wintertime, you're only getting about 45% of the charge on a full battery, even if you plug it in long term due to the cold. And of course, that's what we're seeing here as these vehicles are breaking down on the side of the road. Now, if this is happening in minus 18 degrees Celsius, what would have happened if this was 2030 and Justin Trudeau had his way and all gas-powered vehicles were banned and people were driving electric vehicles? This roadway would be a parking lot, essentially, and people would be freezing to death in minus 40-degree temperatures. Of course, Alberta Plumber, good friend of the channel, coming out, Netflix and chill is canceled, only chilling allowed. Marty up north having the best point that I found in this, and I want to get on that tweet. Diversifying our grid by adding wind and solar is not the answer. You know what would have been nice to have today? Another 900 megawatt gas-fired power plant, like the ones about to come online in Edson, Alberta. The 1,200 megawatt of wind and solar that was installed in the last decade was a waste of money. He then replies down here, no plants were deliberately taken offline. Here's a picture from 2 minutes ago. 4 gas-fired plants are off, totaling a mere 76 megawatts of lost capacity. Now, of course, people here with their flag bios The loony bins are saying, hey, look, we need to realize that the government did this on purpose because the government wants to have negotiating power. The government wants to set up things so that they can argue with the feds. But Marty up north, of course, showing that wind, solar were all producing zero. Zero. Here it is across the boards. 0, 0, 0. Important to remember, Marty was an engineer, and if anybody knows about this, Marty worked for companies like TransCanada Pipeline, and of course, he would know more than the average person on Twitter. What are your thoughts on small nuclear reactors? Marty comes back. I think humanity is wasting precious time by not spending more time developing nuclear. Of course, as we go down, he says we can still improve it. We need to get better at disposing or recycling the spent fuel that's going out. Now, Marty having a very good point here. And of course, Marty, I've always said, is a very smart and intelligent individual. And I always like listening to what he has to say. But much like many Albertans who were pointing the finger saying, hey, look, Calgary didn't shut off their downtown. The lights were all lit up like a Christmas tree. Other businesses didn't shut down when we were told to conserve electricity. Those businesses need to run. Those buildings have people inside of them. So much like your home, much like anything else that you're doing, you need to be able to rely on electricity and natural gas to keep people alive, to stop pipes from freezing, or else you're going to have water main breaks, you're going to have gas leaks, you're going to have a barrage of problems. Now, many people are probably going to look at this video and say, hey, Derek, you sultry man, you're sitting in the background with a bunch of arcades still on and your lights on during a time of an energy crisis. Well, let me fill you in on what I've done to prepare for these such situations. I have a number of what are called UPSs in my house, or uninterrupted power supplies. I've purchased them over the years just in time for an emergency like this in order to make sure that should electricity be slowly rolled out, I have multiple sources to ensure that my devices don't shut off, that my fridge doesn't go out and my food spoils, or that we can still use our basic necessities as needed. I've also acquired several, well, I should say 2 generators over that time, which could both run out of my garage if I needed to, in order to recharge said UPSs or a furnace or anything else to stop things from freezing in my home. I would encourage everyone right now that I've said multiple times, 2024 is going to be a nightmare for people. And if people think that already in January, oh, I can't believe all these stories are coming out, I can't believe all these things that are happening in the government, you're going to see a pushback from provinces like Alberta, like Saskatchewan, probably British Columbia as well, pushing back on the federal government now, talking about their 2030 agenda. Keep in mind that when we talk about 2030, this isn't about climate. What you have to remember is there was a pandemic a few years ago, and it didn't work. There was a group of truckers who went to Ottawa who protested, and then people got loud. And even though that convoy was dismantled, a lot of people started asking questions. And over time, the government started to see, hey, some of our plans for keeping people corralled, for keeping them locked up in their homes is failing. Things like the environment have been brought in simply just to find a way to pacify people, because everybody wants to save the environment. Everybody wants to make the environment cleaner. This is now a way to control your habits. When you look at credits for carbon, there's a MasterCard out there that we're going to cover on this channel that allows carbon credits, meaning that if you spend more than your carbon credits, the card cuts you off. This is the start of digital currency, digital ID, government regulated, in order to keep you in your 15-minute city, keep you at home, and stop you from going out. There is no climate crisis. I've looked at pictures of the early or the late 1800s of the water levels at the Statue of Liberty and then the water levels today, and I can assure you they're both in the same spot. This is all part of a government plot in order to keep you in your homes and control what you're doing by limiting something that ultimately takes generations to correct. There's always an excuse with the environment to say, well, it's gasoline. Now it's wind turbines causing the problems and disposing of them. We've covered stories on this channel where they say it's farting and burping cows that are causing the issues. And now they're saying people are breathing too much, and that's causing problems. And how do you fix people breathing? Well, you control the population, you meld them down to nothing, you steal hope away from people, and you offer programs like medical assistance in death. Now, this is a whole straw man of things going on that I could get into, and it's going to take a lot of time, but we only have so much time for these videos, so I can assure you, as we continue to cover subjects like this on the channel, things will be getting loud over the year of 2024, and I encourage each and every one of you, if you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, to make sure you click it, turn on your bell for notifications, and come back here on the channel regularly, as content is updated all week long here on the channel, and boy, are we going to be covering all this stuff and holding the government's feet to the fire, so to speak, if we can build one in this cold, in order to get the answers we need and get back to regular life. If you've enjoyed this video, again, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell for notifications. Join us live here every Sunday on the channel at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, where we do our weekly wrap and talk about more going on here. Let me know what you think about these Alberta outages and these green policies or these climate emergencies that you see installed mayors like Jody Gondek and Olivia Chow talking about. Let me know if you think it's all part of their agenda or part of the WEF, or where it's coming from. Let me know what you guys think down below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, get this out there, because, of course, anytime we criticize the government, YouTube is ordered to shadow ban us in the algorithm and stop us from getting out. And these are the kind of things people need to know about, I find, because there's not a peep from the mainstream media. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm always happy to bring this kind of information to your feet, and I will always make sure that it's as accurate as possible. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. Stay warm. I'll catch you on the next one.